On the previous card, the Lovers, we saw suggestions of life being born from the spiritual world down into the physical. The Chariot card carries on this journey, and although at first glance it appears to have much less symbolism in it than some of the previous cards, it still carries on this idea of which has been growing throughout the tarot story. In many ways, the Thoth Chariot bears more resemblance to the popular Rider-Waite card than what we had previously seen before. The Rider-Waite showing a regal-looking warrior adorned with symbols of the stars and moon, charging forward towards the reader by duality-dressed Sphinx characters. In the centre of the chariot is what may or may not be another Orphic egg, suggesting that this journey is one of being born into a physical body, the sun behind him representing, of course, that essence of life. The Thoth Chariot card occupies path number 18 on the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. Now, this is the first time on the Tree of Life that a card has come down, so this is coming from Binar down to Geberar, which of course implies the descent of the spirit into the physical, which is what we saw previously and suggested with the Orphic egg. This is especially true when we consider that Binar on the Tree of Life is associated with the birth of form, and so this journey that the Chariot is going on is the journey through physical life, and it's suggesting that no matter what our personal beliefs may be, we are all on our own journeys through life in our own unique ways. And down at the bottom of the card, yet again we have our Hebrew character, and this Hebrew character is the word cheth, which can mean either a field or a fence. It's quite interesting that the actual character itself resembles what may be a fence. And of course, if we're to take this idea of a field and a fence, that of course creates an enclosure of which one would cultivate crops in order to live their lives, or an enclosure of which to build upon it their house or their property. In more metaphysical terms, this enclosure would be the container for a spiritual essence, and so if we are to catch lightning in a jar, we need a jar to catch it in the first place. So the bodies of which we inhabit in this physical world are containers or enclosures for the spirit or the soul to reside within. Much in the same way that if you wanted to drive down a road, you would need a car in order to do so. If you wanted to exist in this physical vibration, you would need to inhabit a physical body to do so. The other side of the bottom of the card shows the astrological sign, and this time the Chariot is associated with the astrological sign of Cancer. Cancer is the ruling sign of this card, and it is characterised as a crab. And a crab, going by what we've just seen before, has over the top of itself a hard shell, and it can also retreat into its shell if it is in trouble, suggesting that this shell is hiding within it the softer and more delicate nature inside it. Now you'll notice that the actual person of whom is within the chariot himself is holding no reins, and so the chariot may be moving, and yet he is not actually driving or controlling it in any way. His main function is to carry the item within his hands, which we will come to later. He is not actually controlling the destiny of this chariot in any way, and so on the previous card, which was associated with Gemini, implying a choice, the choice has now been made and the road must be travelled down. The charioteer has upon his head a crab on his helmet, which is of course yet another symbol of the ruling planetary force of this card, which is Cancer. Now, his armour is, as the crab would be, a protective shell or a protective armour, and yet again is suggestive that he is inside the armour. The armour wouldn't move if he wasn't inside making it move, and so we are the drivers of our bodies. We aren't a brain or a body, but we have a brain and have a body. Upon his actual armour are 10 stars. The 10 stars are most likely symbols of the Tree of Life itself, And so all 10 Sephiroth on the Tree of Life, which when joined together represent the entirety of the universe, and they are also associated with the world of Isaiah, which could be translated into English as the world of action, of movement. There are also sapphires or gem-style crystals upon the armour. These are linked to the Sephiroth of Binah yet again, the birth of form. And when form is fully birthed, it would be down in the Sephiroth of Malkuth. And so this is suggesting that this journey of which the charioteer is on is the journey of manifestation. He's setting out into the world to manifest his will, to manifest the life of which he has chosen on that path of which he has decided to go down. The helmet on the armour of which he is wearing is closed, so we cannot actually see his face. Now, in the Book of Thoth, Aleister Crowley gives a rather sinister sounding explanation of this, of where he states, "No man may look upon his face and live." This isn't quite as sinister as what it first appears. In spiritual terms, this merely means that if we were to glimpse at his true identity, the observer of which is driving this body, the consciousness, if we were to understand the true nature of that consciousness, then our perspective of the world would change completely. And so, in other words, if we were to look upon his face, his true face, then our perspective of the old world would die. Our understanding of reality would be changed. Now, he is sitting in what is quite obvious to most people as a posture of meditation. And so this is saying that he is concentrating very much on his will, and he's concentrating on the manifestation of his will internally, inside himself. He's not focusing on what's going on around him. The whole world could be falling around him, but he's concentrating on that fire of spirit inside which will allow him to manifest his own will and set the chariot upon going down that road to see it manifested. He is meditating in this position by sitting on top of the moon. Now, the moon in this case is not the same feminine archetype that we saw with the Empress. Here it is thought to represent the subconscious mind, and so by sitting on top of the moon, he's saying that he is taking control over his subconscious mind. He is taking mastery over it with his meditation. Now, the chariot itself has red-coloured wheels. A red circle on the Tree of Life is, of course, Geberah. Geberah is ruled by the planet Mars, and Mars is an astrological planet which is very much concerned with that world of action, the world of movement, of will, which is, of course, exactly what the movement of the wheels would symbolise on the actual card. This is similar to the fact that he is wearing a red cloak as well, suggesting that he has within him a passionate intention. There is a difference between merely wanting something to happen and actually setting an intention for it to happen. And here he is setting forth with his will and putting action into it, so he is actually making definite steps to manifest his will. There is also a white cloak to go along with the red cloak, and the white cloak represents that this will at its highest form is a pure will. It's comprised out of white light of Kether, and so it's going back to do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, and the bit that everybody misses off, which is love is the law, love under will. And so he is seen here, you could say in Thelemic terms, to be performing his true will, because his true will always be comprised out of that light and that love. Around the chariot you can see he's passing through what appears to be 4 pillars. These 4 pillars, unlike Jachin and Boaz before, which were merely 2, here represent the Tetragrammaton, and so they're representing all 4 parts of the name of the Tetragrammaton, which represents the universe itself, the macrocosm and microcosm once again. And so he's passing through a liminal state, the linking of the spiritual with the physical. This is the line between waking and sleeping that we've seen so many times upon the channel and within this actual tarot deck. So the fact that he's actually passing through them on the picture on the card represents that he is crossing a veil from that spiritual into that physical. So he is himself manifestation. He is that force of manifestation that you are seeing crossing from Geberard down into Binar and onwards into the physical world. The Sphinxes take up the vast majority of the bottom half of the card, and unlike the Rider-Waite deck, this has 4 distinct Sphinxes. And yet if we are to look at these Sphinxes, they are not merely Sphinxes, but are a bull, a lion, a man, and an eagle. And so the lion is the element of fire and Leo, the eagle is water and Scorpio, the man is air and Aquarius, and the bull is earth and Taurus. And so these Sphinxes are the physical world. They are the fixed elements of this physical vibration of which we are actually in. You could call them cardinal signs. So they are elements of manifestation. These are the things of which make up this physical world, of which is where he is coming to. He is facing the direction of the physical world. In his hands he holds the most esoteric symbol on this card. What he is actually holding is the Holy Grail, and so within his hands is one of the most potent symbols of life and of mystery. Within inside the Holy Grail is an amethyst, the stone which can be associated with the planet of Jupiter, or in other words, all of these great things of the physical world, such as healing and prosperity, good fortune, miracles, and whatever else wonderful things you can think of. The Holy Grail, of course, in popular culture, was used by Jesus at the Last Supper, and is a symbol of which represents the taking in to one's body of the mysteries of the universe, as seen symbolically in the taking of a Eucharist. Now it's worth noting that Aleister Crowley identified the Holy Grail with a type of sexual alchemy. So in other words, he is suggesting that the Holy Grail symbolises the mysteries of life itself and the mysteries of where we actually come from. Now this Grail that the charioteer is holding contains 4 handles, or 4 spiral looking designs around the side of it, and these are symbolic of the 4th Sephiroth on the Tree of Life, which is yet again Chesed. On a similar note, the 6 rays of light which appear to be radiating from the centre of the Grail represent the 6th Sephiroth, which is Tifereth. The actual red centre of the Grail itself, as well as representing that holy blood of which was said to be within the Grail, also represents the sun. Now what's quite fascinating here is that in astrology the sun enters the sign of Cancer, which is associated with the Chariot, on what is around the time of the summer solstice, which is the time where the sun is at its most powerful and at its highest in the sky. So if we then take that metaphor and go to the highest point upon the tarot card of the Chariot, we can see written on the top of this banner the word abracadabra. Now in Thelema the true word of abracadabra would be abrahadabra. Now this is interesting because the Hebrew word cheth, which was associated with the card, in gematria has a value of 418. This is the same numerical value to the word abrahadabra. If we also break down the word itself, we can find that it's comprised out of 5 vowels and 6 consonants. If we are to then take this to create stars, we would have a 5-pointed star, otherwise known as a pentagram, which represents man, of course, the microcosm. And the 6 can be drawn into the 6-pointed star or the hexagram, which would represent God, or the universe, the macrocosm. Put them all together and come out with the magic word of abrahadabra, and we have yet again the aim of Hermeticism itself forming itself on the very top of the card. And so to finish, let's look yet again at Aleister Crowley saying that if we are to look upon the face of the charioteer, that we would not live. Is to suggest that if we are to draw this card, that we may need a hard shell throughout our journey in life there may be struggles and uphill battles to face, and yet once we have glimpsed at the true nature of these things and glimpsed at the mysteries of existence, we're going to set a road, an intention to go upon. We're going to work through those troubles and those battles, and we're going to charge forth along that road with set intention. And of course, once these things have begun, things will begin to link up to create the manifestation. And so once we have glimpsed at our intention and set ourselves upon it, the old world will die, and we will charge through that veil towards the new one.